Hello and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Liam Xavier and you join us here at EBAday 2026 in Copenhagen. With me right now is Elena Gomez, the Managing Director, UK and Europe Domestic Payments Head at Citi. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, one of the main topics here, especially in the studio and in the panels, is all about instant payments and that speed. But when we're looking at how things are changing, what other innovations are you actually seeing out there?
Yeah, I think speed and availability are obviously the pillar foundation of instant payments, but when we look around the world, it's really on the overlay services that we're seeing innovation happening. So QR codes, for example, is one of the big solutions that are driving adoption around the world. We're seeing Brazil, India, Thailand, where volumes have exponentially grown because of QR codes. And the key about QR codes is that they add value across the chain, but they are also really simple to use. Request to pay and instant direct debits are another two solutions that we're also seeing quite successful around the world. And similarly, they're quite simply to adopt and they're really adding value to the chain. If we look at today how direct debits work, it's quite nuisance setting up mandates, but when we look at how instant direct debits and request to pay are digitizing mandates and accelerating the settlement, this is really bringing a lot of value through the change. And frankly, they are revolutionizing recurrent payments. Right?
And obviously security is a big concern right now. How are these new changes like QR codes actually helping to build that fight against fraud?
Yeah, it's a key question, and I think it's important to differentiate as well how existing method of payments versus these new emerging technologies are, bringing fraud. So if we look at credit card payments, a lot of the fraud that is related to them tends to be unauthorized fraud. So this is where credit card details are stolen and utilized by fraudster. But when we look at QR codes or request to pay, what we are seeing is that it's actually authorized access. So getting a hold of a bank account seems to be much harder. So what fraudsters are doing is through social engineering, they're tricking consumers or even corporates into making a payment to a fraudster. So obviously the ways of defending versus this fraud is slightly different to what we've been seeing in the past. If we look at QR codes, for example, one of the critical ways in which we are seeing fraud happening is through the tampering of the QR code. So a fraudster actually pastes a sticker on top of a valid QR code with their own details. The good news here is that these new technologies actually enable us to have more data, more structured data that can be used to defend against this. So in this case, where the incorrect sticker is pasted, it's really important that whoever is making the payment is actually verifying who you're making the payment to, because a QR code should be displaying who is the merchant or the other party that you are paying. So obviously the defense is slightly different to what we've seen with credit cards. We need to educate and we need to make sure that we have the right levels of protections against this.
So then if we're talking about some of the prevention areas where people are perhaps making new tools, they're doing these new innovations, how can they build defense from the start at the design level?
Yeah. I think I would focus on three pillars. Probably the first one would be adding value to the chain. The second one should be making sure that it is simple and easy to build and adopt. And then third is obviously around security and resilience, right? So if we're looking about, I think if we look at past innovations that haven't worked, it's really because they weren't solving for any problem or they weren't really adding value to the chain, right? If we look at resilience and security, absolutely critical for consumers and for corporates to trust the new solutions coming in. And then simplicity is essential. It is important that it's simple to use, but it's also simple for institutions to build, and that there is an economical value end to end.
Really, really interesting, and thanks so much for joining the studio.
No, thanks again for having me.